I knew a guy once that valued his peace. And once he figured out that he deserved peace, he was in a toxic relationship. But it's not toxic for why you might think. It just was, at that particular time, the woman that he was with was in a depression and a funk so deep that even though he tried to crawl down into that depression hole with her and kept reaching his hand out to pull her up, she refused his hand. Or even if she did grab his hand, she didn't have a good grip on it. She wanted to be out of that hole, but wouldn't climb, wouldn't do the things necessary. And he could tell that the hole was closing at the top. And at the last moment, he had a choice. Does he stay in the hole with her, or does he climb out and save himself? He climbed out and saved himself. He left the rope just for whenever she was ready to climb out, but he had to climb up and save himself before the hole closed. And he left the relationship, left his house, left everything for peace. What will you leave behind? Hello, Governor. This is Rakai Steed, Nuke from the Ville, here to talk to you about Arcane, Season 2, Episode 7. And this is called Pretend Like It's the First Time. Now, this particular deep dive I'm doing for this media therapy session, I'm calling Leave It Behind. Now, after the events at the Hex Vault, we actually haven't seen Ekko and Heimerdinger for some time. And we start off the episode by seeing Ekko wake up in a parallel universe. Now, how do we know it's a parallel universe? Because of the way he's dressed, because of what he's doing. We soon see Powder come in to talk to him, and he gets real aggressive. He starts throwing things at her because he doesn't realize this is not Jinx. But then, as he's kind of gearing up, ready to fight Powder, Benzo comes through the door. And if you don't remember from Season 1, Benzo was like Ekko's adopted father. Benzo was killed by one of Silco's souped up shimmer beast. So Ekko realizes that for whatever reason, he's in a parallel universe, but he gets to hug and love on Benzo again. We find that in this universe, not only is Benzo still alive, but Mylo, Claggor, Vander is still alive. As a matter of fact, Vander and Silco are on good terms, and Ekko, after seeing them together, is like, wait, what are y'all doing together? Didn't you try to kill him? And Silco has some great words to drop in there about how time forgives everything. We also find out that the robbery that the crew went on, the four of them, Powder, Vi, Claggor, and Mylo went on at the very first episode, was botched badly, like it was in our universe. However, Vi didn't make it out, and she died in it. And remember, Ekko is the one who gave them the information about that robbery. Ekko is still going through, his mind is kind of fractured, and he's kind of seeing visions or whatever. He's out of time. Very much the same the way as Miles was in the Spider-Verse movies. He talks to Heimerdinger, and Heimerdinger says that he's been here for a little over 3 years. And when he saw some changes in Ekko, he knew that that was his Ekko. Jayce did not arrive with them. Jayce ended up in a hellscape. And one of the great things about this entire series is duality. Wherever someone is up, someone's got to be down. So let me jump over to Jayce for just a second. Jayce ended up in a hellscape, a nightmarish reality, where he finds out that Piltover is gone. It looks like it went through some sort of nuclear blast. There's no humans around. He actually ends up falling down a ravine, a deep ravine, and his own hammer comes down, busts his leg all up. He's trapped at the bottom of this ravine. Because of his leg, he can't climb up, he's stuck. And through that, he continues to start going through madness. He actually sees a version of Victor, but he's upset with Victor because he feels that this is the result of their work. He ends up taking apart his hammer and using it for parts to brace his leg. He climbs up, and eventually he sees that there's some sort of other beings there. They remind me real heavily of iRobot, the way that the android, the robots looked. And he climbs up to the top of the tower in Piltover, and he sees a figure that is kneeled down holding his hammer. And from the look on his face, he assumes that that is him holding his hammer. Another figure appears, and it's Victor. And Jayce and Victor have this back and forth. And Jayce says he knows where he went wrong. And he asks Victor if there's any power that he has, send him back to his own time. He won't mess it up. He knows that he needs to destroy the hex core and everything that came out of all of these things that he invented with the hex, which may even be Victor. Victor ends up agreeing, and the being that was there, his eyes open and his arms move forward, and he releases the hammer and gives the hammer to Jayce. Now remember, this all comes after we saw crazy Jayce pop up at the camp and kill Victor the last episode. But this is how we see that descent into madness. Now, let's go back to Ekko. Ekko is working with Powder because after he talks to Heimerdinger's like, hey, this world is great. You might want to stay here. And it is the vision that Vander and Silco, especially now that they're working together for Zaun, has come true. Zaun and Piltover are getting together really crazy. These twin cities are prospering, they're thriving, they look wonderful, and it's no longer the city on the hill and the undercity. But Ekko says he has to go back. So he and Powder and Heimerdinger start working on something, on creating the Hextech here so that he can go back. But Hextech was never created here. That robbery, killing Vi, changed everything. Powder never became Jinx. In messing with the runes that Jayce had, Ekko ends up creating a time loop. So the hex core actually works different here. And it's unstable, and after a few tests, Ekko finds that he can't go past 4 seconds. So whenever he pulls the chain on his device, it reverses time by 4 seconds. There is a beautiful section where the inventors competition that a lot of the new inventors like Ekko had been looking forward to. Ekko meets Powder there, and they have this wonderful dance. And it's at this moment that Powder and Ekko share several moments. And you can see this is everything that you could want. Zaun is perfect. He's got the girl of his dreams, the girl he grew up with. They're having intimate moments. They're dancing. Everything is perfect here. He's got his father. He's got all of his friends. And really, at this point, the only thing that's missing from this world is Vi. Everything else is perfect. But he still realizes that he has to leave. He stabilizes the device so that he can leave. But Heimerdinger makes a sacrifice to plug the device in, and he says, you know, he's had a wonderful time working with Ekko. Ekko is planning to leave without really telling Powder because it would be too hard, and then maybe he would want to stay. And when all is said and done, Powder found her way down there to where they were working anyway, and Ekko leaves to go back to his own universe. You know that I love my quotes. Hold on a second. I did this in honor of Ekko, but I can't do it anymore. I pulled my locks over to, you know, this F-boy, this, you know, default haircut, but I can't. I couldn't do it anymore. That was driving me insane. I felt like I was trying to hold my head over to hold it. Anyway, you know that I love my quotes. So the quote here is, I'm gonna go back to the same quote from the very beginning, which was said by Ekko, but is actually Newton's third law. And it is, in order to move forward, you have to leave something behind. And what that means is, in order to make progress or significant changes in life, you often need to let go of old habits, past experiences, and even relationships that might be holding you back. That essentially signifies a necessary element of detachment in order for you to achieve growth. This particular episode might be the best episode in the entire series. And yes, even though I'm talking to you about episode 7, I've seen all the episodes. As a matter of fact, I had to sit on this final arc for at least a week to let it marinate, to let it cook, so that I could cook. If you go into the description and look at the reaction that Centel and MC and I had, we were blown away in the moment. But I know for each one of these deep dives that I've had, I could not do them directly after I watched the episode. I had to let it marinate a little bit. I had to let that sizzle in my spirit. I'll see you, Country Wayne. I also had to get all of my thoughts together to say what it was that I wanted to say. This is by far the best episode of maybe the entire series. And you may have your favorite characters, but Ekko is by far the unsung hero of this entire series. There's another point that I'll make when we get to episode 9, the finale. But in this episode, how can Ekko not be the hero? Ekko went to paradise. He went to where it was perfect. Zaun was beautiful, thriving. He had his girl. He was a inventor. He was that guy. He had people that he loved back around him, and everyone was thriving. Everything was good. And he chose to give it up. And he had to. He had to choose to give it up. Because in order for him to take the step forward, he had to leave something behind. And he made probably the biggest sacrifice in this entire series. He gave up perfection. He gave up paradise. He gave up paradise to go back to God knows what. But he did that because there were people in Zaun, people in the underground that depended on him, that needed him. He was a leader. And he sacrificed his own happiness to make sure that the people that needed him were taken care of. That was the type of guy that he was. And many of you, many of us, might not make that same choice. I'm not sure what choice I would make, and a lot of us are not sure. You could say with your mouth what you would do, but you don't know until that situation has presented itself. It's all the time I think about, if I had a time machine, would I go back in time and change many of my circumstances? And it's easy to say that, but I cannot imagine not having my kids. Even if I'd have kids by a different woman or whatever, and my whole life has changed, I cannot imagine not having these kids. And I can't change. I'm unwilling to change a minute of that, even if it changed my circumstances completely. I just can't do it. A lot of people are not willing to say that. And sometimes, maybe, again, we're talking about things that you need to let go of, including, old habits, past experiences, and even relationships. I don't know what that thing is for you. Ekko couldn't do it. And I don't blame him. I don't. As a matter of fact, I applaud him. He was able to do what many of us are unwilling or just could not do. No matter how much you want to, you're unwilling to make that sacrifice. Letting go is crucial for progress. And sometimes there are things that you need to let go of. Old habits. The thing is, once you get a habit, it builds a routine. And once you build a routine, it becomes lifestyle. And that sounds good if those habits are good habits. But if they're bad, you have a bad habit, which leads to a bad routine, which leads to a terrible lifestyle. And then you ask yourself, how the hell did I get here? When you cling to the past, it hinders you from realizing the possibilities ahead of you. And these things, letting go of things, apply to several areas in your life. I know people that have had one job their entire life because they were afraid of the unknown. They were afraid of change. They weren't willing to let go. And as much as they complain about that boss, the work, not enough challenge, they weren't willing to get out there and look for something different, maybe something better. Because it's easy to put obstacles in your own path and be like, well, maybe the next job I get is going to be worse. Maybe. But maybe it's going to be better than you could ever imagine. But if you're not willing to put yourself out there and find out, you will never know. I have a friend, loose term. I have a friend that she won't leave this one dude alone. Now, this dude was toxic as hell. And every time he did some real toxic, messed up stuff where I was about to you know what, hold up, let me pull up. She'd be like, no, because here he come love bombing her. And he would buy her all these gifts and say he would never do it again. And he's sorry, blah, blah, blah. But it became a cycle, the same mess for a couple years. And she couldn't pull herself away. And even when they finally did break and he ended up moving out of town, she still found herself drawn to that dude for some reason. She's with another dude who actually treats her pretty well. But she realized that the one dude who was toxic as hell, he made her the center of his world. And that's why he was toxic, because he didn't have anything else going on. He had no ambition. He had nothing else going on but her. So yes, he would stalk her. She couldn't talk to other people, anybody. And he would show up someplace and act a fool and embarrass her. And next thing you know, he's love bombing her, buying her shoes, buying her gifts and all these things to appease her. I'll never do it again. You lying. You know you lying. But her new dude, what she realizes is that he has not made her the center of his universe. He's with her and he's good to her. But when you get in that cycle of toxicity, now she's not willing to let go to free herself. You gotta let go in order to move forward. In order to see new potential. And even though it's challenging, even though it's difficult, even though it's mind-numbingly hard to do, you have got to let go. And it's going to hit you emotionally. I can't imagine what Ekko was going through. Ekko decided to leave Powder, the girl of his dreams. And how do I know there's the girl of his dreams? Because what else, if you remember through the episode where the little books fell out that he was writing in, he doodled pictures of Powder all the time. You don't be drawing pictures of no girl that you're not into like that. And he was willing to leave because it was the right thing to do. He had to get back to the people that needed him. And he was willing to forego maybe what he needed. This was a difficult episode to deep dive. And even though it seems like it wasn't, but this was a difficult episode to see, especially after last episode and what we witnessed with Isha. Seeing the sacrifice now made by Ekko was doubly, is that a word? Was double unsatisfying. And even though, like I said, best episode of this series so far, it was hurtful to see what Ekko had to give up in order to take care of everyone else. Again, what are you willing to give up to move forward? Could you have made the same decision? This is Rakai Steed, new from the Ville. Make sure that you like, comment, share. And if you haven't, hit that subscription button. Hit the button, subscribe, so you can be on deck for everything else I have coming through, and so you can go back through my back catalog and check some of the other gems that I have there. Something may resonate with you. Remember, it's not just about this. Put this in everything that you do. But it's got to be about this too.